what is it about intimate relationships that cause so much trauma? Because I feel like when you think about trauma, the majority of it centers around these intimate relationships, whether it's from childhood or just our relationships that we're going through right now.
Excellent question, Brian. I think one of the things I think of in my way of thinking, kind of using a self-differentiation family systems model, which is kind of what I use to formulate problems and to formulate solutions for those problems. And when you ask a problem like that, what causes that kind of trauma? Typically, and I'm sure you're aware, some people are traumatized by X. Other people are barely traumatized by X. Why is that? What X is still X. I mean, but we are affected differently. And I think one of the main things to remember is that depending upon how enmeshed we are emotionally, often the more trauma results from that. And I don't mean closeness in a healthy way. I mean closeness in an unhealthy way. And that's what enmeshment is. When we're over close and there's trauma in the relationship, then we're really going to be hurt. We're really going to be, because we're not very self-differentiated. I'll give you the typical, another example of, I go into a department store, and I'm old, so I've got department stores. Rather than I go on Amazon, but I go into a department store, see the clerk, and she says, "Well, I just think you're a funny looking man." Well, that's, I'll take that as a compliment. Now, if your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend tells you that, now you're traumatized by it. Why is that? Because there's greater emotional enmeshment often going on, and often we will be hurt or traumatized, and so with that emotional enmeshment, which is what I work to try to help people begin to move out of, so that it doesn't mean I can never be hurt, but I'm not hurt in this way, I'm hurt in this way. And there's a big difference between this being hurt and that being hurt, a person and me, because I have some space between us. And so with that enmeshment, which is common for most families and common for most dysfunctional families, is an over enmeshment. It's an enmeshment of the whole family. And so when something goes wrong or something hurts or we're said, I don't love you anymore, then it can be traumatized. Or if we get cheated on and those kind of things. Not that being cheated on, you should never feel bad. That's ridiculous to not. Of course, that would be a very painful experience. But we know that the more unresolved enmeshment someone has from their past and with their family of origin, the longer it takes to get over the cheating spouse, the cheating boyfriend, it takes longer because we have all this enmeshment that we're dragging along. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know if that's helpful, but it is, I think, something to think about when it comes to trauma. And if there's a specific type of trauma you wanted to mention, I'd be happy to. You were talking more like relationship trauma. And
so what I'm hearing is that it's not necessarily just the event that's traumatic. It's the fact that you were close to that person and then the event happened. And it's like, I'm thinking about like the difference between a breakup of a friendship versus like your parent neglecting you. Like, it's like the closer the relationship, the more the trauma. Is that what I'm hearing?
And as long as you're using the word close in a not very healthy way, it's not close. We certainly want intimacy and closeness, but I can be close to someone and still be differentiated. In other words, I still have my own space, my own autonomy, my own individuality, but I care about you, I love you, and I am connected to you. Enmeshment's a different thing. That's where I borrow some self from you and you borrow some self from me. Now, if I get hurt by that person, yike.
Hmm.
Now, and that's why I help people get away from the borrowing self and loaning self kind of problem that we have in relationships. You mentioned the that enmeshment or closeness. It is more likely that we will find more trauma as a result of the over enmeshment and closeness we've had from past relationships, and particularly our family of origin, that we take into adulthood. And we take that level, and that, so the level of self-differentiation determines a lot about how affected you're going to be. Let's take a medical example. I'm run down. I haven't been drinking much water. I'm overly tired, and I'm stressed. I get near somebody and they have a cold. Am I likely to get the cold as well? Probably a good chance I probably will, because I'm already run down. The same is true in relationships. If I'm already have unresolved attachments from the past, I'm already run down. And then we get into relationships, and then we wonder why they hurt so bad, why we mess up, why we choose the wrong person, we end up with those kind of difficulties. And usually that's a good wake-up call when that trauma starts to happen and we experience it. I certainly can empathize with it, as I have gone through a number of traumas. I also know I have become more resilient to trauma and grief and loss and pain the more I have grown to be my true self and to have a healthy distance in my I know the word I was trying to think of when you asked me about, if you're overly close, you may be traumatized more. And I think of that as your emotional location. If you're emotionally located here and you get traumatized, it's going to be awful. If you're here, you're probably not even going to care. If you're here, you're going to handle it in an adult, mature way. So you can be, too much of a good thing is always too much of a good thing. People come to me in marriages, couples, girlfriend, boyfriend, they all come and say, hey, we want to work on our intimacy and get closer, because all we do is argue. You know what I tell them? Oh, no. You're already too close. We need to help you separate a little bit, not from the relationship. I don't mean go find somebody else. I mean, we need to have your inner boundaries and your inner sense of self fortified and have some distance so that you're not triggered all the time by the other person. And often, if we are enmeshed, we're just going to be triggering each other like this all the time. Argue about this, argue about that, argue about that. And they go, we want to be closer, Jerry. And I go, that would be malpractice if I made you closer, if I even had the magic wand to do it. But that'd be malpractice. I want to help you get here where you are yourselves, have some healthy space, emotionally, location-wise, and then you can have true intimacy. But true intimacy requires a healthy amount of distance.